plant-based chili on the menu. This product illustration in 2022 received an excellence in the National Image Salon of the Professional Photographers of Canada. It was also a part of their loan collection. So let's find out from the maker how this was created. Welcome to Award-Winning Images Explained. My name is Manpreet and I am your host. Jenny Gwynn from a small town, Lethbridge in Alberta, is a lady who wears many hats, and she wears them so well. She is a Master of Photography Arts, has 9 accreditations from Professional Photographers of Canada, also known as PPOC. She's an award-winning photographer, an image competition national judge. She runs a successful wedding, family, commercial and aerial photography business. Besides people, she photographs food, products, and if all that was not enough, she is a mental health professional as well. So welcome, Jenny.
Hi.
So Jenny, tell us a little bit about who Jenny Gwynn is and how did you make the transition to photography from your previous, or are you still a mental health professional at the same time? So how did you get into photography? Tell a little bit about your background and then how you got started in photography.
Sure, no problem. So as a child, I did not have the greatest upbringing, and I found photography as an art form at that time that was very connective, and it connected me to my surroundings, to the people that I could connect to, those kind of things. So I always loved it. So then I got married early in my life. I was 20 when I got married, and when I was pregnant with my last and third child, my husband at the time said, "Oh, when you're done with this kid, or having this kid, you can go be a bank teller." And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for telling me what I should go be." So I was just thinking, I just couldn't picture myself putting my kids in a daycare to go be a bank teller. And that just did not seem like the best life for me. And I didn't want anyone else to decide that for me. So I thought, you know what, I love photography. This is something I can do with my children. And so I started that. So I've been in photography professionally for about 20 years this year actually. And I joined the PPOC about 2010, and I've been judging for about the past 10 years in the PPOC. But that, I've found it just a fantastic thing that I just love to do. Love it.
And you're also a mental health professional.
Yeah. So when I was in business 10 years, I went back to school. So I was 41 at the time, and now I'm 51. And so I did a nursing degree with people that were my kids' age at the time, and then I went right into a master's degree right after that. And I have those 2 degrees, and so I work full-time as a mental health professional, and I do my photography part-time now.
So let's talk about this award-winning image of yours, plant-based chili on the menu. So was this a personal project or was it for a client?
So it wasn't for a client. I was going for my food accreditation. I love to challenge myself. So in the PPOC, we have accreditations where we get to have 10 images of some kind of genre, and we get them vetted by judges, and we have to have all 10 pass. So it took me 3 times to get this to pass. So I was doing all kinds of learning. I actually, before I got my accreditation awarded, I mentioned to someone, "Oh, I wish this would fail again," because I was learning so much every time that I had to try for another part of the accreditation. And I love to give myself challenges, so this was just one of those challenges. My grandmother and her mother were born and raised in Mexico. So I have this Mexican food just it just runs through my blood because it's in the family blood, I guess. And I love to eat plant-based. So that was I was just, I'm going to make something, and I'm going to photograph it. And it was a very simple setup. And that's just the background, I guess, of this image.
So you yourself eat plant-based diet, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
your being a health professional had not much influence in that being plant-based.
No. I
Okay.
chose to be vegetarian when I was 6.
Wow.
So it's been most of my life.
So was there anything else that inspired this image? Did you?
No, it was basically just practice. I practiced a lot with food and styling. So with food photography, I upped my game as far as my cooking skills. I upped my game as far as my food styling skills. Like that's a whole skill set in of itself. And then I also wanted to make it simple because in photography there's the geographic shapes like circles and colors. So I kept in mind the color theory, form and shape, and it's just a really simple lighting setup from a window nearby. And yeah, so it's quite simple. Yeah.
So what was the background and how did you plan the shot?
So the background is you can buy backgrounds on Amazon that are for tabletop photography. And so I got a number of backgrounds. They weren't actually that very expensive. And it's the one that I like to use a lot because it's very dark. So when you use a dark background, it kind of makes the colors of food pop a little bit more. And I used a kind of a more neutral looking bowl, like a wide base bowl as well. So the more of the food than the dishes would be apparent. And I blocked the light. So in my kitchen, I have, where my table is, I have like a window here and then a window like it's adjacent to, I guess. So it's a really great lighting setup, but I find that I have to block more light than add more light in that environment. So I put some light blockers up so it was truly coming from one window. And those are basically just black foam core that I use black gaff tape to connect them. And when you're doing food photography, you have to bring it right off the stove because it can't look like it's cold. It has to look like it's still hot or being cooked or appetizing. So what else? I'm trying to think. And then I used where the tomatillo was. So I used shapes there, right? So there's tomatillo up in the right hand side, and then there's some leaves down on the bottom left hand corner, and then I have a onion shoot to add more of the kind of repeating shapes, right? So the round bowl, round tomatoes sometimes, some of them are round, and then the rounded onion. So it helps the eye travel through the image.
The styling is done entirely by you. You didn't have a professional stylist there, obviously. Right?
I read a lot. I read
Nice.
a few books. That was my... And then a lot of practice.
And you didn't use any other additional lights?
Nope. It was just a window light, and I blocked
Right.
the other, it's coming from the top.
Yes, I guess once you understand how lighting affects products and food, be it natural light or artificial light, you know how to control it.
Yeah, and as far as post, I didn't do much. I just I think I sharpened it a little bit, sharpened the edges, and then I just popped the color a little bit. But I think, and I must have darkened down slightly the edges, just ever so slightly.
Okay, nice. And what kind of gear did you use? What camera did you use? What lens did you use?
So I use a Canon. I don't think I had my R5 at the time, but it would have been a 5D Mark IV. And the lens would have been an f4. I usually shoot pretty wide or wide open, but it would have been an f4 aperture, and the lens would have been a mid-range, like 24 to 70 lens, and I would have been standing right on top of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you had this obviously on a tripod?
Mm-mm.
No? Handheld?
Handheld. 20 years of practice, I guess. I don't know.
And how much of post work did you do? Not too much, you said.
Yeah, not too much. I usually in a lot of my food and product photography, I bring back the highlights. So I don't push the highlights. I bring them back, and I might bring up the shadows a bit, but not a lot, not a lot. And then I usually pop color because food, especially plant-based food, it's so good. Like it's just so colorful, and the designs are beautiful. Like they're very beautiful. Just in natural food.
Yes.
Plants.
Yes. Now I know you have been a judge yourself. Besides winning some incredible accolades and awards for your images, and I know you have recently written a very interesting blog on the subject. Tell us in a gist what that blog is about.
Sometimes I feel like as a judge that when someone's putting their images in, it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall to see if it sticks, right? To see if they get something from it. And while there is aspects of photography that judges pay attention to, so this would be things like form, light, shape, color, pattern, kind of the elements of design. I want people to believe in their image. I want people to believe in their voice that they're putting out to the world, the message they're trying to say. And if a judge doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that their voice is not valid or their art form, their process, their craft is not valid. And I say that as a judge. So, because it just depends on whoever the 5 people are that are on the panel.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't mean that you are not a good photographer if something doesn't hang. It doesn't mean that you are not worthy of being in the space you're in just because someone doesn't like it.
Different opinions are the reason why sometimes you have judges score all over the board.
Yeah.
And that's when the discussions happen.
Right, exactly. But having said all that, I have learned way more from my non-successes than my successes, right? So that's like when I was trying for my food accreditation, I actually said to someone, "Oh, I hope I fail again so I can learn more," right? But I just feel like judges aren't robots, right? Judges don't, like, they'll have opinions. And when you enter something in for judging, you're just looking for someone who knows a lot, but their opinion. And take it for what it's worth, right? Yeah.
Yes, for the longest time, I never used to enter competitions. The reason being, I thought I didn't want my images judged by somebody else. But when I joined PPOC and started entering competitions, I realized what a learning process it was. And now, entering these competitions, I'm sure it would have impacted your photography as it is today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I learned way more from my non-successes than my successes. And then when you finally get that accreditation after 3 tries, or when you get that photographer of the year, whatever it is, like there's an actual dopamine rush in the brain that, like, okay, I made it, right? I did it, I earned it. So it feels good and it's meaningful, right? Because it is hard to do.
Good. Now you got your fingers in a lot of photography pies, right? You are doing a number of different genres that you are a master of. And you are based in a small town, Lethbridge. Somebody, let's say there's an aspiring photographer in a small town who wants to grow a business, a photography business. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
So this advice has been born of either success or both failure, right? So you have to say what you mean what you say, keep your word, be kind, because when you're in a small town, it's all about connections and networking, right? You can go, depending on what your photography is, like, so wedding and portrait is kind of my main thing, but I've branched out into commercial and aerial and those kind of things. But be responsive to clientele, and yeah, provide good work, provide good service. Because also when you're in a small town, word gets around as well.
Right.
Either good or bad.
Yeah, yeah. You're branching out into commercial, into food, into product. Was that a result of you stretching yourself to gain accreditations in PPOC?
Yeah.
It was.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I've only had a few like actual people asking me to do something, like as far as food and commercial, those kind of things. Aerial is a bit of a different story because we in Canada here we have to have so many. We have to have like the Transport in Canada, like what is it called, license or whatever. So I have my advanced license. I like to challenge myself, right? And when I got that advanced license with aerial, I was like, okay. Now
So that's a drone you're talking about.
Drone. Yeah. I don't know, I love pushing myself, and accreditations is a great way to do it.
Yes.
One other thing that as a mental health professional, I lean into photography as a wellness practice. Say 20 years ago, we didn't have cameras in our pockets, right? Now we do. And we don't. 20 years ago, we had film, and it was expensive, and you had to go get the film, and you had 24 shots, and then you had to go get it all developed and stuff. But now it's in our pockets, and it's really easy. So the photography itself is a very good mindfulness-based experience, where you have to slow down, you have to physically slow down, and focus on something that speaks to you. So that's probably another reason why, like as a mental health professional, I have to make sure that my own wellness practices are high and tight and buttoned up and as best as I can. And photography is part of that for me. So with the PPOC getting all these accreditations, those are basically personal projects too, and stretching my legs, giving myself challenges to learn, and those kind of things.
That is true. For your personal well-being, I think photography or any kind of creative outlet is so important. But do you use aspects of photography in your professional mental health professional process?
Yeah, with my clients, I talk to them about, it's called phototherapy or therapeutic photography. So I talk to them about that. And so if photography is something that speaks to them, it's an easy art form to get involved in, right? Yeah. So it with mindfulness, I don't know if you've heard of the concept of mindfulness, where you kind of scan the body just to kind of slow yourself down, slow your breath, those kind of things. For people with deep trauma past, mindfulness is actually an unsafe experience inside of their own bodies, because sometimes people haven't had total control of their bodies, right, through different trauma experiences. And photography is something that allows them to focus, to slow down, and kind of focus on something without focusing on the inside yet. So it's kind of like a step into relieving the body somatics from trauma. So yeah, I do use it.
Wow, that's been so insightful. Thank you so much. Now, where can viewers reach you or see more of your work or follow you?
So I'm on Instagram as Imagine Photography. I think it's there might be a dot in there, imagine.photography. I'm on Facebook as Imagine Photography. My website is Imagine Photo, so Imagine as IMAGEN photo.com. And I have a little other personal project because I like to push myself. On Instagram, it's Earthlings Pantry. And so there I've shared my food photography. There I've shared my own recipes, plant-based, and I also talk about wellness there as well. And because I love to push myself, I've actually just recently gotten into pottery, so now I'm making my own dishes And this is along the lines of the wellness thing too. Like in my job, I spend full-time hours in other people's trauma spaces, so I have to make sure that I'm doing okay. So my weekends are generally, and my evenings are generally very kind of introspective, and how am I doing inside, those kind of things. So that's kind of part of that as well.
Well, I will put the links in the show notes as well. And I'd like to thank you for your knowledge, your expertise, and sharing your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you've liked this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Till next time, thank you.